Hello, as usual it's me Pavlo, and today we'll be talking about 7 Hz Legato. Dual dynamic driver earphones, as you can see on the box. I think that 7 Hz doesn't require some introduction. Almost all who following the news from Chinese market who are interested in their earphones, of course, know 7 Hz. They created a bunch of really popular models, and that's why every single release from this company gather a lot of attention and everyone is waiting for it. And Legato is not an exception. It's pretty affordable, $110, in-ear monitors built with 2 dynamic drivers. If you're interested in the details, just follow the link to the store I will add in the description. They have all details listed, describing what driver used, what Japanese capacitors, how they select cable, and so on and so forth. So for us it's interesting that here we've got 12mm big woofer that delivers pretty lot of bass, and 6mm dynamic driver for the rest of the sonic spectrum, and it's interesting to see what it will give us in the general. So probably it's enough for the introduction, let's have a closer look. Box is pretty simple from the outside, but actually looks pretty attractive thanks to glossy finish and interesting polygraphy. Unfortunately there is no English localization, but actually main figures we can understand: 26 ohms and 108 decibels per volt for 1 kilohertz. Pretty normal earphones in terms of drivability. But actually inside of the case be prepared to be surprised by the packaging and exterior stuff. So inside of the case you're getting really great looking case, and really stylish one, and really convenient for storing of something. Of course it's not the portable case for the earphones, but definitely a good addition to your collection, because every single audiophile will find something to store here. So here are sets of filters and replaceable grills. Actually, really good touch to add them to the accessories set. And here are different tips. As you can see, a lot of tips in the stock set. And inside of the box here are earpieces themselves with another pair of tips. So earphones are built really well, so they CNC'd from aluminium, looks nice, pretty strict, and as you can see they are close to the default ergonomic shape, but slightly different. So into my ears they fit really well, because everything here is smooth and they are pretty compact, so they don't touch any sensitive areas of the ear. And also they have a really long spout that for me gives a nice deep in-ear insertion, giving above average sound isolation. Despite having a lot of vent holes, still they isolate external sound really well for me. And here you can see that grills and filters that you might want to replace one day. In general, machining level and overall build quality looks really decent out of the box. So like this natural metal gray color, and interesting faceplate with that vinyl-like pattern, so always looks pretty nice, especially under the light. Cable is made replaceable. Here used 2.5mm connectors without recessed sockets or recessed pins, just classical 2-pin connector, but of course this stock round one fits better into the design. Cable itself is also pretty nice and well made, both in terms of aesthetics, in terms of sonic capabilities, and in terms of usability. So here are ear hooks format for comfortable wearing, then it goes braided, really interesting dark insulation with a slight hint of transparency, so you can see basic parts, basic details of the wires inside, but not too much. Looks attractive. Cable is soft, comfortable, not super soft, but really on the softer side of things, and with low microphonics. Here is the splitter with the chin slider, and after the splitter it goes down to the 3.5mm jack, pretty compact one, so you know, like zero questions for me here, everything is made and built really well. And of course about the sound, I gave them about 48 hours of traditional burn-in, but they didn't change sound noticeably. More important is to find some proper tips. And you know, it's actually, I can actually simplify all the sound review. It's a basshead earphones, like not typical basshead like we boosted bass, but we definitely use some balanced armatures on the mids and on the treble to give you the maximum resolution and details. No, it's like old school, classical, crash your skull, shake your eyeballs type of low frequencies. It's basically all you can eat bass buffet, and it will stuff you with low frequencies. They have noticeable boost on the lows, like 15 decibels, and actually if you don't like the idea of super bassy earphones, you can definitely skip the rest of this review, because they have mighty, punchy, deep bass. It goes to the maximum depths, main accent is made on the mid bass and the deeper layers of bass, and you know, it's just, as for me, subjectively, it's not my type of tuning. For me, such signature is really fatiguing, especially on the bass heavy tracks. But on the other hand, I really like to have such earphones in my collection. I have actually Campfire Atlas to serve the similar purpose, but of course, like, I'm not saying that it's like Campfire Atlas, but they have a similar idea in terms of some similar ideas in terms of tuning. Atlas being more detailed and technical on the mids and treble, of course, but also really powerful on the bass, like both impactful and weighty, massive, and so on. And it, of course, fits. Actually, I wanted to say that it fits electronic music and pop music, but actually, it's not a matter of music genre, it's just a matter of your taste. If you like big bass, you will definitely enjoy them, and like, it's big bass, no compromise, without trying to avoid bleeding on the lower mids, and actually it's unavoidable in this situation. But from another hand, they sound really coherent compared to some basic hybrids, because for basic hybrids you can definitely hear, oh, here is where dynamic driver ends and balanced armature starts. No, here you'll get smooth transition to the mid frequencies, and actually surprisingly mids, especially upper mids and treble, are pretty detailed here. But on the bass heavy tracks, of course, low frequencies will dominate, and you'll have different multi-layered bass with a lot of details. Actually, it's not super detailed on the lows because they have lot of additional weight, and that avoids them being super fast and super resolving, but still resolution and texturing is pretty nice. But of course, don't expect some super saturated with small nuances and details type of sound. You know what is fun? I also like these earphones with some audiophilic tracks, some properly recorded tracks with some nice acoustic bass, for example, sounds also super engaging. So bass lacks a bit of realism, but at the same time it's really palpable and really interesting to listen to. But now, as an example, for the low frequencies, I've selected Massive Attack and Teardrop. Actually, this track is built on top of that famous low frequencies line, like double kick, then kick and click, and that repetitive pattern is the foundation of the whole thing, and it's definitely present with these earphones. It's like not even dominating, but it's omnipresent. But surprisingly, on top of that, you're getting all that three-dimensional effects that is recorded here on the mids and treble area. All that samples and saturation and details like keyboards here present and percussions, vocals, sounds pretty nice and clean. Mid frequencies are a bit mixed in terms of opinion, so it's definitely not super resolving. Or actually, I need to rephrase it a little bit because lower part of mids is highlighted in terms of warmth by the bass. So sometimes where on particular tracks they sound a bit like overwarmed, overly warm and lacking details. But from another hand, lot of tracks actually sound just good because middle mids and upper mids are nicely detailed here. They just like put really in behind of bass, but they remains audible. So you know it's really mixed opinions. For example, like I don't know, Mezzanine, all the Massive Attack Mezzanine that I've listened, they have a lot of different samples and other stuff, and it always played really clean and clear. I tried with some metal, and you know, for example, Iron Maiden sounds a bit too warm, but at the same time, Metallica's Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets are pretty okay. So probably it's just a matter of mastering, mixing, recording, so where each part of track hits. And also they have, you know, surprisingly good imaginary stage, like not super big, but much bigger than I've expected from the bassy earphones. I don't know like for others, but for me the warmer earphones are, the more bass they have, the more narrower and intimate is the stage. But here stage is above average in width and in depth, not like, you know, 3D holographic or pinpoint, but at the same time nicely positioned with that mighty bass. Actually, it sounds like behind the other instruments on the properly recorded tracks, so it's even properly locating them in terms of depth. And it's not trying to accent emotions or dynamics, so it should be well recorded. And also it requires nicely recorded things in terms of low frequencies, because on poorly recorded bassy things, of course, it will be overshadowed by the bass. But when source control low frequencies nicely, actually, and track is also good, it will stay on the necessary place. And a bit surprising even for myself, example for the mid frequencies, it's Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. I wanted to try it, like how bad will classical hard rock sound, and actually it sounds really engaging. There is no big bass here to dominate over the whole mix, but at the same time bass line and drums sounds pretty fun with full body. And actually keyboards, vocal, and of course that guitar with wow wow effect also sounds really good. So you know, unsurprisingly this track sounds really nicely in terms of detalization. Not like the most technical performance, but pretty enjoyable and fun. And the treble actually here is also pretty well defined with good extension, and it's accented, but it's not as accented as low frequencies, so like half of low frequencies accent. So sometimes I'd like to hear more treble, but at the same time, for those who want bass heavy earphones, super accented treble probably will be a bad idea. So treble is present here, it plays nicely basic overtones, it has a bit slower attacks and decays, but typical for the dynamic driver. But at the same time, basic overtones are present and they are not super sharp or super accented. So in this aspect, they is probably fitting the overall signature of these earphones. They are not super comfortable, but also not piercing, so really nicely balanced. And example, It's actually what I've told you, like audiophilic tracks, for example, Amber Rubarth's sessions in the 17th word, sounds really good. I can select any track, but I selected Novocaine, and it also sounds good, like drums, guitar, vocal, all actually vocal and guitar have a lot of overtones. Of course, it's like not fully developing these overtones, but in general sounds pretty pleasant and even tries to recreate like that sense of whole where it was recorded. So, to summarize everything once again, nice, fun, good bass heavy model. In terms of pairing, actually they are not super sensitive and they even require slightly more than average power, but definitely not the super power hungry model. But it's better to use them with some natural source because it will be it's easy to get some overdose of low frequencies with some warmer or bassy source. So keep this in mind if you want to find some good pairing for them. I can't recall like any similar model to compare. Such sound is out of trend now, but actually I think it's a bad thing, and it's great that we have such earphones because definitely this tuning can get a lot of fans. Only model that I can recall like slightly reminding it's actually Eco's OH10, but that's exactly that other examples that I've told about. They have balanced armature on mids and treble, so they have more focus on micro contrast and details here, like more technical performance, but at the same time they sound like closer to two different speakers, not that coherent as this one. And also they have slightly less bass compared to this model. To summarize everything, really interesting earphones. If you're looking for some bass heads, it's great offer with great price, and actually it's even worth to have them as a second pair in your collection if you like the idea of listening something super bassy time to time. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.